Previously, we turned a cardboard box from trash into treasure. Today's video will be part 2, finishing off our cardboard box project. Stay tuned.
You are what I'm looking for. I know what I'm looking for.
Alright, so far we have created this cardboard box book cover, and it's got some ribbon closures and it's decorated with pattern paper. Now today we're going to move on to decorate the inside of this book. You all had some wonderful ideas and I appreciate all of your input. And we're going to turn it into sort of like a Christmas planner. I'm going to create a notebook and some pockets and some fun stuff to use this book for my Christmas gifts and cards and things. So I've got a little white notepad here, and this is just from the dollar store. It comes in a pack of 6, I believe, for like $2. And I'm going to take this little notepad and I'm going to decorate the front of it so that it matches all of the other pattern paper. So I'm starting off using some of the scraps and the cut aparts that I had from the 'Twas the Night Before Christmas paper pack collection. And I had a scrap that was just a little bit too small. So I peeled off the first page from my notebook, and I'm going to use that as my guide on how big I need my cover to be. So I'm just going to apply some adhesive, and I've got these little scraps of black cardstock, and I'm going to help fill in my cover with the black cardstock so that I can use this pattern paper. So I'm just applying adhesive to both of the edges and laying that black cardstock to create my layer. And then I'm making sure that it's meeting up at the very bottom, but I'm letting everything hang over the top. And I'll do the same thing with the pattern paper. I was originally going to use the red side, and then when I went to adhere it, I changed my mind. I liked that berries a little bit more. So I'm going to apply the adhesive to that pattern paper and glue everything down. And I have a nice little black border, and it'll tie into my book nicely. So once that's all adhered, I'm going to put this on the front of my notepad, and I'm just going to get it lined up with the bottom. And I'm just going to gently bend the cardstock to wrap around the glued edge of that notebook. So I'm just taking my time to make sure everything is nice and straight and lined up, and I'll just bend that cardstock over. And then I'm going to grab my bone folder and really burnish those creases in. I'm just going to press so that I make sure that this cover goes over the top of my book, and then the edges are defined so that it sits nicely on the front of my little notepad. So once that's done, I'm going to pull it off, and I'm just going to reinforce those lines. I'm going to create that scored edge, fold everything down, and use my bone folder and crease those edges to make sure they're nice and sharp. Now don't worry about these little bits hanging over. We're going to use that to our advantage and glue this to the back of the notepad. So I'm going to add some double-sided adhesive, the farthermost flap there. And I want to make sure this is good strong stuff because I want this to hold onto my notepad. So I'll put that adhesive on, peel away the backer, and then just place it over top my notepad and press in that adhesive, and then there we go. We have a beautiful cover. I'll use my bone folder, press everything in. Super cute. And then I have this little cut apart here. I'm going to add some foam squares onto it, and I'll peel off those release papers and pop this right on the front of my notepad. Super cute. This is a beautiful little gift all in itself. If you just wanted to put this with a little pen in a little gift package, super cute. Okay, so now I'm going to take this and I'm going to create like a little hanging spot in my book to place this notepad. Now I have a scrap of this leftover paper that matches perfectly with my background. So I just want to make sure that I get the right size piece here and that everything is going to fit nicely. So I'm just going to cut it down, and I'll add a few little lines of liquid glue here. And I want to make sure that my book is going to fit. So I don't want to put too much glue, but I want to make sure that it's good and strong and it's going to hold. So I'll get that lined up in the top part of my book here, just on that inside cover, and I'll press in that adhesive, and I'll give it a chance to adhere to the paper. And then I'm going to slide my little notebook in. I'm just going to go nice and gentle here to make sure that I don't pull off my little belly band. and I'll slide that paper in, and I'll just kind of hold on to the edges because the glue is still a little bit wet, but I want that because I want to make sure that this is going to fit. So I'm just sliding that little cardboard backer to my notebook inside of there. And then I'm just going to burnish around the edges of that cardboard just to try to create like a little home for that book. So now with those edges adhered and those creases, I'll be able to slide this book in and out with no problem. And that's perfect. It's going to live right here in this little home. And then if I empty out the book, I can always come back and add another one. I can just pull this out and be able to pop a new book in its place. So this will be a reusable gift. All right, so now we're going to work on some pages. I'm going to take a couple of pieces of black cardstock and I'm going to cut them down to 8 inches by 5 inches. I'll pop them in my scoreboard, and across the 5-inch side, I'm going to score at 4.5 inches. This is going to create a little 1/2 inch sort of binding strip where I can glue these inside of my book. Now, originally I thought I would glue the pages separately, but I decided to glue them together, and you'll see what I mean here in a minute. So I've got both of these pieces scored. I'm going to fold on those score lines and burnish with my bone folder. And then I thought I was going to kind of put them separately. And then when I put them together, I thought that's kind of better. Because I had put that pattern paper on the spine, I didn't want to cover too much of it up, but I need a spot to place my pages. So I'm just going to adhere these 2 pages together. I'll take one page, add some adhesive to that little 1/2 inch strip. I'll attach the other 1/2 inch strip to create sort of almost like a little mini book, it looks like. So these 2 pages will be folded together with a 1/2 inch strip in between them. So I'll use my bone folder to press all that adhesive in. And then I'll add another strip of adhesive to the back where I'm going to glue this down to the spine of my book. So I'm just going to add this nice strong adhesive here and use my bone folder and burnish that adhesive in. I'll peel off the release paper and then I'm going to get it popped into my spine. So I'm just eyeballing here. I'm kind of centering it from top to bottom and then in the middle of that spine. And then once I'm happy with the placement, I'm going to come in and burnish that adhesive in, make sure that it's good and pressed in. And there we go. We still have our continuous pattern in the background of our book. And then we have our pages adhered down. So now that we've got these pages in, it's time to decorate them. So I've got this pattern paper from the same collection. I just cut some pieces down to decorate the inside of these 2 pages, and I ended up cutting them just a little bit too short. So I cut a little 1/2 inch strip for the center and then a piece for the left and right, and I'm going to turn these into side pockets. So first I'm going to punch a hole using my circle punch. I'm just going to punch a little finger notch here so that you can tell that it's a pocket. And then I'm going to grab a piece of foil cardstock and I'm just going to line up the edge of that page. So this helps me fix my mistake by cutting my pattern paper too short and then adding in that foil strip. It looks like it was meant to be that way. So I kind of like the result there. So I'm adding adhesive to 3 sides of this little pocket and then leaving the left side open. And then I'll apply this down to my page and making sure that it's nice and straight and lined up. And I'll do that to both sides, the left and the right, so everything will look the same. And then once again, my pattern is continuous from the left to the right. So I like the way that that looks. Super cute. All right, so I have another piece left over here, and it happened to be the perfect size for the front and the back. So I'm going to adhere those down to the front and the back. And instead of using that toy pattern, I'm going to use this red pattern instead. So I'm just going to cover that back page. And then on my front page, I've got that red side visible as well. So this is what we've got so far. I have one scrap of those toys left over, and I'm going to turn this into a pocket here. So I'm going to take my little circle punch and create a little finger notch here, and then adhere down the 3 sides, the left, right, and the bottom. And then we have a cute little pocket for the first page. So this is coming along very nicely. I like the way this looks, and I like the space that's in between each page. So I have a piece of vellum here that I turned into a pocket. I edited this part out because it was ridiculous. It took me a half an hour to cut and trim and paste just a little weird vellum pocket. And I wasn't really happy with it, but I left it. I thought it's already there now and it's adhered, so I'm just going to leave it alone. All right, so the very last thing I want to do is create a waterfall. Now, I've seen this in YouTube videos, and I always love the results. I've never made one of these before, so I'm just going to try and see what happens. If you know a better way to do this, I'd really like to hear it. So what I've done is cut 6 pieces of cardstock that measure 4 by 4 inches, and then scored and burnished a little 1/2 inch on each page at the top, and then I'm going to adhere this down in my book, starting with the bottom piece where I want the waterfall to finish, and then next I'll add in the top piece, and then I'll try to figure out my spacing in between to make sure it's even. It doesn't end up being perfect, and I just keep adding one piece and just kind of visually checking to make sure that, you know, it looks okay and that everything is nice and straight. As I mentioned, I'd never done this before, but I really liked the result in the end. I was happy enough with it. Next time I try it, maybe it'll work out better, but this wasn't terrible. So I've got all these little pieces adhered in, and basically this is just going to create a bunch of flip ups. So my idea for this was to put lined paper to make notes in here. So either I could put addresses for my most common sent Christmas cards, or I could put Christmas lists in here. I had this vintage note paper from Authentique. It was from a Christmas collection. It doesn't go with this Christmas paper pack, but I really like the idea of the little lines on it. So I went ahead and cut that up, and I put one of the cut aparts on the very first page of that waterfall. And that little cut apart was just a little bit too small. So I added another piece of that gold foil in, and then I cut up a bunch of pieces with little lines on it so that it looks like a little notepad. And so it's got this little candy cane stripe on it. It is a vintage look, but I think it's fine. I really like the look of this little waterfall with that little note paper on it. It turned out really pretty. I thought about adding like a magnetic closure to here, but I didn't want to get too complicated with this. I wanted this to be a simple and easy project to reproduce without really spending too much time or money here. In the paper collection, there are some 4x6 cut aparts, and I'm going to cut these up and turn them into gigantic tags. And I'm going to stuff these in some of the pockets in my little book. So I've got my little tag punch here. I'm just punching off the corners, turn these into jumbo tags. And so I'm just checking to make sure that they're all in the right orientation. And I'm going to punch a hole in the top. And I want to make sure if there's any writing on the tags, I don't want to punch out the words. So I made sure I had strategic placement of my holes here for my tag. And then I've got some white pieces of paper. These are just 3x5 inch, I believe. I think they're 3x5 inch tags that I've cut so that you can write on the back. These could be a Christmas card even, or a tag or whatever. You could tie them to your packages and things like that. So I wanted writing space for the back of these jumbo tags. So I've adhered down this white piece of paper, and a couple of the tags I had to add some sentiments. Like this one here, I added a piece of vellum and a sticker from that paper collection. I think the vellum helps mute the tone behind it so that you can really read that sticker greeting. I also added a little ho 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 to the window on this one, and there we go. So these tags are all ready to go. Now I'm going to put them inside of our little pull-out pockets here so that when I write my Christmas list, or if I have a gift I want to give to somebody, then I've got everything I need in my little book here. All right, so now we have some pockets here. I've got some other cut aparts from the book. I'm going to pop these in here. I could turn these into cards later on or add them to my gifts. And so I'm going to put some in that little weird vellum pocket in the back. I think the cut aparts in the paper collections are one of my most favorite things because they're so versatile. You can make tags or cards or scrapbook elements or front elements to your books, decorations, all different kinds of things. All right, so the very last thing I'm going to do to this book, I believe this book needs its own pen. So I've got a little piece of foil cardstock here. I'm just going to take my bone folder and round this piece of foil so that it will fit around my pen. I've got some double-sided adhesive here, and I'm just going to fit this little piece around my pen to make sure that my pen will slip in and out with no issues. And then apply a little bit more double-sided adhesive along with some liquid glue. I find that the the liquid glue doesn't stick very well to my foil cardstock. Anywhere that I used foil, I had to come back in and add double-sided adhesive. So I'm not sure if it's just me or if it's just my cardstock, but either way, I'm going to add that liquid glue for that extra reassurance that my pen's not going to disappear. So I'm going to pop this right in the very center of my book, in between those two pages. This is a perfect home for this pen. And I'm just going to slide it in and out, make sure that it's going to come in and out with no issues. And there we go. Our book is complete. Our beautiful piece of cardboard is now turned into a Christmas planner where we can write notes, make shopping lists, create gift tags, and so much more. I mean, there's so many things you can do with this. I hope that you've had fun and have gotten inspired. If you are turning trash into treasure, I'd love to see this. Please tag me on Instagram at jennycarddesigns or on my Facebook page as well, jennycarddesigns. Let me know if you're creating something similar. I'd love to see it. All right, that's going to be it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend it here with me. Coming up on screen is part 1 of the Trash to Treasure series. If you haven't had a chance to see that video, head on over and check it out. Thanks so much for joining me. Have yourself a lovely day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!